The day Easton chose his family over me still plays in my mind like a broken record. I remember standing in our kitchen, watching him pack his things while his mother's words echoed through our apartment. "She'll never be good enough for a Lynch." My name is Delilah, and I was naive enough to believe love could bridge any gap. I grew up waiting tables and studying nights, while Easton grew up in a mansion with a silver spoon in his mouth. But when we met at that coffee shop where I worked, none of that seemed to matter. "You can't just leave," I said, my voice barely a whisper, as he stuffed his expensive shirts into a suitcase. "After everything we've been through." Easton wouldn't look at me. "My family, they're right, Delilah. We come from different worlds." I tried to make them understand, but what? My background isn't prestigious enough. My father wasn't a CEO. The coffee mug in my hand trembled. "I thought you were different. You don't understand the pressure I'm under," he said, finally meeting my eyes. "The family business, our reputation." "No, you don't understand," I cut him off. "I loved you despite your family's money, not because of it." The doorbell rang, making us both jump. Tiffany, his mother, stood there in her designer suit, perfectly manicured nails drumming against her purse. She barely acknowledged my presence as she walked in. "Easton, darling, the car is waiting," she said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "Your father is expecting us for dinner." I watched as Easton's shoulders slumped in defeat. The man I married, who once promised to stand by me through anything, was crumbling under his mother's gaze. "You should have seen this coming, dear," Tiffany said to me, her smile never reaching her eyes. "Someone like you, well, you must have known this was temporary." My best friend Bridget had warned me about the Lynches. "They're old money," she'd said. "They'll never accept someone they consider beneath them." I'd dismissed her concerns, believing Easton's love would be enough. "Someone like me." I stepped closer to Tiffany. "You mean someone who worked her way through college? Someone who knows the value of hard work?" "Mother, please," Easton interrupted, but Tiffany raised her hand to silence him. "Someone common," she replied. "We have certain standards to maintain. Surely you understand." The weight of my wedding ring suddenly felt like lead. I slipped it off my finger and placed it on the counter with a soft clink. "I understand perfectly. I understand that your son isn't half the man I thought he was." Easton flinched. "Delilah, don't what? Don't make this harder. You've made your choice, Easton. You chose them." I turned to Tiffany. "Congratulations, you've won. But remember this moment, because I promise you'll regret it." "Is that a threat?" Tiffany's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. "No," I smiled, feeling a strange calm wash over me. "It's a promise to myself." I grabbed my keys and walked toward the door, pausing only to look back at Easton one last time. He stood there, trapped between his mother and his suitcase, looking lost and small. "You know what's funny?" I said. "I actually felt sorry for you, growing up with parents like these, but now I see you're exactly like them." The door closed behind me with a satisfying thud. In my car, I called Bridget, my hands shaking as I held the phone. "He's gone," I managed to say, before the tears started. "I'm coming over," she said immediately. "Pack your bags. You're staying with me." "I can't just." "Yes, you can, and you will. This isn't the end of your story, Delilah. It's just the beginning." As I drove away from the apartment I'd shared with Easton, I caught a glimpse of Tiffany's car in my rearview mirror. Mother and son, heading back to their privileged bubble. They thought they'd broken me, but they'd only succeeded in setting me free. That night, curled up on Bridget's couch with a glass of wine, I made myself another promise. I would rebuild my life, piece by piece, until the day came when Easton and his family would realize exactly what they'd thrown away. "To new beginnings," Bridget raised her glass. "To revenge served cold," I replied, surprising myself with the steel in my voice. Little did they know, the humble waitress they'd dismissed would soon become their worst nightmare. Not through malice or schemes, but through the simple act of rising above their expectations and succeeding beyond their wildest dreams. You can't mope around my apartment forever, Bridget announced one morning, yanking open the curtains. It's been 2 weeks. I pulled the blanket over my head, but she wasn't having it. I'm not moping, I muttered. I'm strategizing. Is that what we're calling watching sad movies and eating ice cream now? She sat on the edge of the couch. Come on, I've got something to show you. Reluctantly, I followed her to her home office, where her laptop displayed a commercial space for rent in downtown. The price made me wince. Before you say no, Bridget held up her hand. Hear me out. Remember those organic skincare products you used to make? The ones everyone at the wedding raved about? I nodded. It had started as a hobby, mixing natural ingredients in my kitchen to create face masks and moisturizers. Even Tiffany had unknowingly complimented my homemade face cream at the wedding. Before she knew about my background. There's a massive market for clean, sustainable beauty products, Bridget continued, and you already have the perfect formula. That was just for fun, I protested. I can't start a business. I don't have the money or experience or what? The right family name. Bridget's words hit home. Stop letting them live rent-free in your head. The bell above the coffee shop door chimed as we entered later that day. I needed caffeine to process Bridget's suggestion, but fate had other plans. Excuse me, a man in a sharp suit called out as I walked past his table. I couldn't help overhearing your conversation about natural skincare products. I froze, embarrassed that our excited chatter had disturbed someone. I'm so sorry if we were too loud. No. He stood, extending his hand. I'm Leonard. I work in business development, and I'm always looking for innovative ideas. Would you mind sharing more about your products? Before I could decline, Bridget jumped in. She'd love to. In fact, she has samples in her bag right now. I shot her a look, but she just grinned and pushed me toward the chair opposite Leonard. Reluctantly, I pulled out the small jar of face cream I always carried. Leonard examined the product, asking detailed questions about ingredients, production costs, and target market. His eyes lit up when I explained my commitment to sustainable packaging. You know, he said, sliding his business card across the table, I mentor startups in their early stages. Your idea has potential, but more importantly, you have something rare, passion and authenticity. I stared at the card. Why would you want to help me? Because 15 years ago, someone took a chance on me when I was starting out. Sometimes all it takes is one person believing in you. He smiled. Think about it. Call me if you're interested. After he left, Bridget practically bounced in her seat. This is it. The universe is literally throwing opportunities at you, or setting me up for another fall, I said. But I couldn't deny the spark of excitement in my chest. That night, I pulled out my old recipe journal. Pages of carefully documented formulations, customer feedback from friends, cost calculations. It was all there. I'd stopped when Easton's family made it clear they found my kitchen experiments embarrassing. The next morning, I called Leonard. 3 months later, I stood in my own small production space, surrounded by mixing equipment and natural ingredients. Leonard had helped me secure a small business loan and guided me through the licensing process. The space wasn't much, but it was mine. To Freeman Naturals, Bridget raised a glass of champagne as we celebrated the official opening. You did it, girl. We did it, I corrected her, including Leonard in my gesture. I couldn't have done this without either of you. Actually, you could have, Leonard said. You just needed to believe it was possible. Speaking of which, there's a trade show next month. Perfect opportunity to launch your brand. Isn't that the one where all the luxury beauty brands showcase? My stomach churned. I'm not ready for that. You're more ready than you think, he insisted. Success is the best revenge, Delilah. Trust me. As I looked around my small but growing business, I felt something I hadn't experienced since before Easton left. Pride. Pure, unfiltered pride in something I'd built with my own hands. Okay, I said, squaring my shoulders. Sign me up for the trade show. It's time to show the world what this common girl can do. Bridget hugged me tight. The Lynches won't know what hit them. No, I smiled, feeling stronger than I had in months. They won't. Your booth location is terrible, Leonard said, scanning the trade show floor plan. But we can work with it. I stood in the massive convention center, watching workers set up elaborate displays for major beauty brands. My modest booth felt like a rowboat among luxury yachts. Remember, Leonard continued, you're not just selling products, you're selling a story, your story. A story about getting dumped by my rich husband? I quipped, arranging sample jars on our small counter. No, he said firmly, a story about a woman who created something authentic and beautiful from scratch. These big brands, they're all smoke and mirrors. You're the real deal. The first day of the show was overwhelming. Buyers and journalists rushed past our booth, drawn to the flashier displays. I felt my confidence wavering until a woman in her 60s stopped to try our sample face cream. This texture is divine, she said, closing her eyes as she applied it. And the scent, so subtle, so natural. It's all organic, I explained, warming to her genuine interest. The rose oil is sourced from a small family farm in Oregon. I'm Margaret from Bloom Beauty, she said. We have boutiques in several major cities. Would you be interested in discussing wholesale options? By afternoon, we had 3 potential retail partners and a growing crowd around our booth. People were drawn to the simplicity of our packaging and the authenticity of our approach. See? Leonard grinned. The truth sells itself. Then I heard a familiar voice that made my blood freeze. Well, if it isn't the kitchen chemist, Noelle drawled, sauntering up to our booth. She'd been Tiffany's favorite choice for Easton, the daughter of another wealthy family. How quaint. Can I help you try something? I asked professionally, though my hands shook slightly. Oh, I'm not here to buy, she smirked. I represent Luxe Beauty now. We're launching our new premium organic line next month. Just wanted to see what the competition was up to. I noticed her eyes scanning our display, lingering on our order book. Well, good luck with your launch, I said firmly. If you'll excuse me, I have customers waiting. After she left, Leonard squeezed my shoulder. Don't let her rattle you. She's worried, or she wouldn't have come over. The next day brought even more success. A popular beauty blogger raved about our night cream on social media, sending a flood of visitors to our booth. By closing time, we'd sold out of several products and had a waiting list for more. We need to scale up production, Leonard said as we packed up. And fast. I know some manufacturers who— No, I interrupted. We're keeping production in-house. Quality control is everything. He smiled. That's exactly what I hoped you'd say, but you'll need a bigger facility, more staff. Then that's what we'll do, I said, surprising myself with my certainty. I won't compromise on quality, ever. The final day of the show, I arrived early to find a sophisticated woman waiting at our booth. She introduced herself as the beauty director of a major magazine. Your brand has created quite a buzz, she said. Would you be interested in being featured in our Rising Stars section? As we discussed the details, I noticed Noelle watching from her luxurious booth across the aisle. Her expression sour. The magazine feature would come out just before Luxe Beauty's organic line launch. Perfect timing, Leonard whispered after the beauty director left. Sometimes karma works faster than expected. That evening, as we celebrated our success at a nearby restaurant, Leonard handed me an envelope. Inside was an invitation to speak at an upcoming charity gala. The theme is innovation and sustainability in beauty, he explained. They want you to share your journey. I stared at the invitation, my heart racing when I saw the event details. The Lynch Foundation was one of the main sponsors. You don't have to accept, Leonard said gently, reading my expression. Yes, I do, I replied, my voice stronger than I felt. It's time to show them exactly who I've become. Bridget raised her glass. To facing our fears head on. To karma, Leonard added with a knowing smile. I touched my glass to theirs, thinking about how far I'd come from that broken woman in Bridget's apartment. My small business was growing beyond my wildest dreams. And now I had a platform to tell my story. My real story. To authenticity, I said. And to never letting anyone make you feel small again. As we toasted, my phone buzzed with another order notification. Success, I was learning, truly was the sweetest revenge. You're fidgeting again, Bridget said, adjusting my blazer in the mirror. The charity gala was 3 days away, and we were at my final fitting. I'm not fidgeting, I protested, though my fingers wouldn't stop smoothing the silk fabric. I'm just making sure everything's perfect. The dress is perfect. Your speech is perfect. You're perfect. She turned me to face her. What's really bothering you? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Another message from Leonard. Just confirmed. Entire Lynch family RSVP'd, yes, including Easton. My stomach lurched. Maybe I should back out. Like hell you will, Bridget snapped. You've worked too hard for this moment. The boutique owner approached with a garment bag. The alterations are complete, Ms. Freeman. Would you like to try it on one more time? I shook my head, already feeling suffocated. I need air. Outside, I leaned against the building, taking deep breaths. A familiar voice made me jump. Delilah. I turned to see Ricardo, Easton's father, standing there in his usual impeccable suit. Of all the streets in the city. Hello, Ricardo, I managed, straightening my spine. He looked older than I remembered, more gray at his temples. I heard you're speaking at the gala. That's right. I met his gaze steadily. About my company's commitment to sustainable beauty. Yes, well, he cleared his throat. Tiffany and I were surprised to see your name on the program. I bet you were. I couldn't help the edge in my voice. Surprised that the waitress you dismissed built a successful company. He had the grace to look uncomfortable. About that, perhaps we were... Save it. I cut him off. I have a fitting to finish. Back inside, Bridget took one look at my face and knew. What happened? Just ran into Ricardo, I said, slipping into the dress. He tried to apologize, or maybe he was going to warn me to stay away from the gala. I didn't stick around to find out. Good, she said firmly. You don't owe them anything. That evening, I buried myself in work at the office, reviewing production schedules and order fulfillment. A knock at the door startled me. You're here late, Leonard said, walking in with takeout bags. Thought you might need dinner and moral support. I grabbed a container of pad thai. I ran into Ricardo today. Ah, he sat down. And nothing. I walked away. I pushed the noodles around. But seeing him brought everything back. The way they looked at me, like I was dirt on their shoes. Good, Leonard said, surprising me. Use that feeling. Channel it into your speech. I don't want revenge anymore, I admitted. I just want to prove them wrong. That's exactly why you'll succeed. He pulled out his tablet. Now, let's review your presentation one more time. The next few days passed in a blur of preparations. The magazine feature about Freeman Naturals hit newsstands, causing our online orders to explode. I barely had time to think about the gala until the morning of. The car's here, Bridget called through my bedroom door. Are you ready? I stared at my reflection. The woman in the mirror looked confident, successful. No trace of the heartbroken girl who'd fled her apartment a year ago. Almost, I called back, reaching for my grandmother's necklace, the only family heirloom I had. As I fastened it, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I heard you're speaking tonight. We need to talk. Easton. My hands shook as I deleted the message without responding. Delilah. Bridget poked her head in. You okay? Easton just texted. I showed her my phone. He wants to talk. Of course he does, she scoffed. Now that you're successful, now that you're speaking at their precious charity event, don't let him get in your head. She was right. I grabbed my clutch and speech notes. Let's go show them what they missed out on. In the car, Leonard called to review last-minute details. Remember, you're on right after Noelle from Luxe Beauty. Don't let her presentation rattle you. I won't, I promised, watching the city lights blur past. I'm done letting any of them affect me. But as we pulled up to the Grand Hotel, Seeing the Lynch Foundation banner hanging above the entrance, my heart raced. Somewhere inside, my past and present were about to collide. Ready? Bridget squeezed my hand. I took a deep breath, thinking of how far I'd come. Ready. The ballroom buzzed with the city's elite, champagne glasses clinking, and diamonds glittering under crystal chandeliers. I spotted Tiffany holding court near the stage, wearing her signature pearls and condescending smile. Deep breaths, Bridget whispered, steering me toward our assigned table. "You're not that girl anymore," Leonard intercepted us, tablet in hand. "Change of plans. They've moved you up in the speaking order. You're now before Noelle, not after." "What? Why?" "Because," a silky voice interrupted, "I requested it." Noelle appeared, wearing a dress that probably cost more than my first month's rent. "I prefer to close the show. The schedule was set weeks ago," Leonard argued. Noelle's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Things change. By the way, Delilah, have you said hello to Easton yet? He's been asking about you." My comeback was cut short by the event coordinator calling speakers for a final briefing. As I walked away, I heard Noelle's theatrical whisper, "Poor thing. She still looks so provincial." The speaker's preparation room was mercifully empty. I reviewed my notes, trying to ignore the muffled sounds of the gathering crowd. The door opened, and my heart stopped. Delilah. Easton stood there, more gray in his hair than I remembered, looking uncertain in a way that once would have made me want to comfort him. "Don't," I said, gathering my papers. "Whatever you're going to say, just don't." "You look amazing," he pressed on. "I've been following your success, the magazine feature. Funny how my success suddenly makes me worth talking to." I moved toward the door, but he blocked my path. "I made a mistake," he said quietly. "I let my family—" "No." I met his eyes. "You didn't let them do anything. You chose them. Own your choice." "Ms. Freeman," the coordinator poked her head in. "You're on in 5 minutes." I pushed past Easton, but his next words froze me. "I miss you." Turning slowly, I laughed, a sharp cold sound that surprised us both. "You miss me? Now that I'm successful? Now that I've proven I'm not just some waitress? How convenient." His face flushed. "That's not fair." "Fair." I stepped closer. "Was it fair when your mother called me common? When your father suggested I was a gold digger? When you stood there and said nothing?" The coordinator appeared again, more urgently this time. I straightened my spine and walked past Easton without another glance. In the hallway, I nearly collided with Tiffany. She wore the same perfume that used to fill their mansion, the one that had always given me a headache. "Delilah, darling," she cooed, as if we were old friends. "I must say, your little business venture is quite impressive for someone of your background." "Thank you, Tiffany," I smiled sweetly. "It's amazing what someone of my background can achieve without riding on their family's coattails." Her face tightened, but before she could respond, I was being ushered toward the stage. Through the curtain, I could see Noelle in the front row, smirking. The Lynches sat at their reserved table, Easton's empty chair between his parents. And now, the host announced, "Speaking about sustainable innovation in beauty, please welcome the founder and CEO of Freeman Naturals, Delilah Freeman." The spotlight hit me as I walked out, my heels clicking against the hardwood stage. From the corner of my eye, I saw Easton slip back into his seat. "Good evening," I began, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "A year ago, I was told I wasn't good enough, that my background made me unworthy of certain circles." The Lynch table shifted uncomfortably. Tiffany's pearls gleamed as she lifted her chin defiantly. "But here's what I learned," I continued, gaining strength. "Success isn't about where you come from. It's about authenticity, determination, and staying true to your values." I launched into my presentation about sustainable beauty practices, but I could feel the undercurrent of my words hitting their mark. Every achievement I mentioned was a subtle reminder of what they'd dismissed. Noelle's smile had turned brittle. Easton couldn't take his eyes off me. And Tiffany. Tiffany looked like she'd swallowed something sour. As I concluded, the applause was thunderous. Leonard gave me a subtle thumbs up from his table. Bridget was beaming. "Thank you," I said into the microphone, then added with a pointed look at the lunch table. "Sometimes rejection is just redirection to something better." Walking off stage, I felt lighter than I had in months. I'd faced my past and emerged stronger. The night wasn't over, but I'd already won. The applause had barely died down when Noelle took the stage, her voice syrupy sweet as she began her presentation. I slipped into the back of the ballroom, not wanting to give her the satisfaction of my full attention. Quite a speech. Leonard appeared beside me, offering a glass of champagne. "But the real show's about to begin." "What do you mean?" He nodded toward Noelle, who was unveiling Luxe Beauty's new organic line. "Watch carefully." As Noelle described their product's revolutionary natural formulation, something familiar caught my eye. The ingredient list she was displaying looked eerily similar to mine. "Is that?" I started. "Your formula?" "With minor tweaks, yes." Leonard's expression was grim. She must have copied it during the trade show, when she was hovering around our booth. My hands clenched around my champagne glass. "That's illegal." "Precisely." He pulled out his phone, showing me photos he'd taken of my original formula documentation. "I had a feeling something like this might happen. That's why I insisted on patenting your formulations months ago." The room erupted in gasps as Noelle's presentation suddenly cut out, replaced by a legal notice on the screen behind her. "Ms. Simmons," a man in a suit approached the stage. "I represent Freeman Naturals' legal team. We need to discuss your company's patent infringement immediately." Noelle's perfectly composed facade cracked. "This is ridiculous. I don't know what you're talking about. The formulation you're presenting," he continued loudly, "is protected under patent number 789324, registered to Freeman Naturals 6 months ago." The ballroom erupted in whispers. I saw Tiffany frantically whispering to Ricardo, while Easton sat frozen, staring at Noelle with dawning comprehension. "You knew," I said to Leonard. "You knew she'd try this." "I suspected. Companies like Luxe Beauty don't innovate, they appropriate. But we were ready." Noelle stormed off the stage, her face red with fury. She made a beeline for me, but security intercepted her halfway. "You planned this," she hissed as they escorted her out. "You set me up." "No," I called after her. "You did that all by yourself." The event coordinator quickly tried to restore order, but the damage was done. Journalists who'd come to cover a charity gala now had a much juicier story. "Delilah," Bridget rushed over. "Have you seen your phone? The story's already breaking on social media. Luxe Beauty's stock is dropping." Before I could respond, Tiffany appeared before me, her face tight with barely controlled rage. "You've made your point. Are you happy now? Destroying reputations." "I didn't destroy anything," I replied calmly. "Your friend tried to steal my work. The truth just caught up with her." "The truth?" she scoffed. "The truth is, you'll never belong in this world, no matter how successful you become." "Mother, stop." Easton's voice cut through the tension. He'd approached without me noticing. "Haven't you done enough?" Tiffany recoiled, as if slapped. "Easton, surely you can't be defending her." "I should have defended her a year ago." He turned to me. "Delilah, I know it's too late, but I'm sorry. I was a coward." "Yes," I agreed. "You were." Ricardo joined us, looking older than ever. Perhaps we all were wrong about you, Delilah." "Perhaps?" I laughed softly. "You know what the difference is between you and me. I never needed your approval. I just needed to believe in myself." A reporter approached, notebook in hand. "Ms. Freeman, could we get a statement about the patent infringement?" "Of course," I smiled. Turning away from the lynches, "I believe in protecting innovation and authentic creation. That's what Freeman Naturals stands for." As I spoke with the reporter, I could feel Easton's eyes on me. But it didn't matter anymore. The butterflies in my stomach were gone, replaced by a steady certainty. Leonard touched my elbow. "Ready to get out of here? We have an early meeting tomorrow with 3 major retailers who just canceled their Luxe Beauty orders." "Actually," I said, I'd like to stay a bit longer. This is turning out to be quite an entertaining evening. Bridget linked her arm through mine. That's my girl. Besides, you haven't even touched the dessert buffet yet. As we walked away, I heard Tiffany's sharp intake of breath, probably shocked that I wasn't skulking away in shame. But I had nothing to be ashamed of. Every step I'd taken, every success I'd achieved, had been earned through hard work and integrity. The night wasn't turning out anything like I'd expected. It was turning out better. The morning after the gala, my office was flooded with calls and emails. News of Noelle's patent infringement had spread like wildfire through the beauty industry. "Your inbox is exploding," Bridget announced, bursting into my office with coffee. "3 major department stores want to carry our line, and that magazine wants a follow-up interview." I barely had time to respond before Leonard walked in, looking unusually serious. "We need to talk. Lux Beauty's lawyers are here." My stomach dropped, but I straightened my spine and nodded. "Send them in." 2 stern-faced attorneys entered, followed by Noelle herself. She looked nothing like the polished socialite from last night. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her designer outfit slightly wrinkled. "Let's make this quick," one lawyer began. "We're prepared to offer a settlement." "No," I interrupted. "No settlements." Noelle leaned forward. "Be reasonable, Delilah. Name your price." "My price?" I stood up slowly. "You tried to steal something I built from nothing, something I created while you and your friends were mocking me for being common." "I admit I made a mistake," she said, her voice cracking. "But this scandal is destroying my family's company. Please." The irony wasn't lost on me. Here was Noelle, begging the woman she'd looked down on for so long. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, surprising myself with my calm tone. "You're going to publicly admit what you did. You're going to apologize to your customers for trying to sell them stolen formulations. And you're going to step down from your position." "That's outrageous," one lawyer protested. "No," Noelle whispered. "She's right." Everyone in the room turned to stare at her. "I was jealous," she continued. "You built something real, while I was just trading on my family name. I thought I could take a shortcut." Leonard cleared his throat. "We'll have our lawyers draft the agreement. You'll make the announcement by end of day." After they left, Bridget hugged me tight. "That was amazing." "But why didn't you take their money?" "Because this was never about money," I replied. "It was about truth." My phone buzzed, Easton calling again. I declined the call, but a text followed immediately. "Please, just 5 minutes, I'm in the lobby." "Don't," Bridget warned, reading over my shoulder. "I have to," I said. "For closure." I found Easton pacing by the reception desk, looking as unsettled as I'd ever seen him. "Make it quick," I said. "I have a company to run." "I left her," he blurted out. "I told my parents I'm done letting them control my life. Seeing you last night, seeing what you've achieved, I realized what a fool I've been. Took you long enough. I know it's too late." He stepped closer. "But I never stopped loving you." A year ago, those words would have melted my heart. Now they just made me tired. "You're right about one thing," I said. "It is too late, way too late. We could try again," he pleaded. "I'm different now." "But I'm different too," I replied. "And that's the problem. I've outgrown you, Easton. I've outgrown all of it." The elevator dinged, and Leonard stepped out. "Delilah, the press is waiting in the conference room." "I have to go," I told Easton. "Good luck with your journey of self-discovery." "Is that really it?" he called after me. "All those years together mean nothing." I turned back one last time. They meant everything. That's why it hurt so much when you threw them away. But now they're just part of my origin story. In the conference room, journalists waited with cameras and recorders. Leonard handed me a statement to review, but I set it aside. "Just speak from the heart," he advised. "That's what got you here." I took my place at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces. A year ago I would have been terrified. Now I felt only strength. "Good morning," I began. "Today isn't about patent infringement or corporate scandal. It's about authenticity, about standing up for what you've built." As I spoke, I caught my reflection in the window. confident, powerful, free. The woman I'd become wasn't defined by the Lynches or their rejection. She was defined by her own choices, her own strength. And that, I realized, was the sweetest victory of all. The autumn breeze carried the scent of success as I cut the ribbon at our new Freeman Naturals headquarters. Camera flashes popped while Bridget wiped away happy tears beside me. And with this, I addressed the crowd. We launch our global sustainability initiative, making clean beauty accessible to everyone, regardless of their background. The applause was interrupted by a familiar voice. "Excuse me, may I say something?" Tiffany stood at the edge of the crowd, looking smaller somehow, without her usual entourage. The audience parted as she walked forward. "Mrs. Lynch," I acknowledged, keeping my voice neutral. "This is unexpected." She cleared her throat, clutching her designer purse like a shield. "I came to make amends, publicly." The journalist's cameras whirred to life. Leonard moved protectively closer to me, but I held up my hand. "Go on," I said. "I was wrong about you." Tiffany's voice carried across the suddenly silent gathering. "My prejudice and pride cost my son his happiness, and our family its integrity. While you were building something meaningful, we were clinging to outdated notions of worth." "Why now?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Because yesterday, my granddaughter asked me why we treat some people differently than others." Her voice cracked. I couldn't give her an answer that didn't make me ashamed. The crowd murmured. I stepped down from the podium, approaching her. "I don't expect forgiveness," she continued, "but I want you to know that you've taught our entire social circle a valuable lesson. Success isn't inherited, it's earned." "Thank you," I said simply. "Would you like a tour of the facility?" Her eyes widened in surprise. "You'd allow that?" "Of course, our doors are open to everyone. That's the whole point." As we walked through the production floor, I showed her how we sourced sustainable ingredients, employed local workers, and maintained strict quality controls. "This is remarkable," she admitted, watching our team at work. "Ricardo and we've been doing a lot of thinking. We'd like to establish a scholarship fund for aspiring entrepreneurs from underprivileged backgrounds. Would you consider being on the selection committee?" I stopped walking. "Are you serious?" "Entirely. Who better to spot genuine talent and determination?" Before I could respond, Bridget rushed up with her tablet. "Delilah, you need to see this. Noelle just posted her public apology, and it's going viral." The video showed Noelle, humble and sincere, taking full responsibility for the patent infringement. But it was her closing words that caught my attention. Delilah Freeman showed me that true success comes from innovation, not imitation. Her forgiveness in allowing me to make this right speaks volumes about her character, the character I once foolishly dismissed. "Well," I smiled at Tiffany, "it seems today is full of surprises." "Life has a way of humbling us all," she replied softly. Leonard appeared with contracts in hand. "The European distribution deals are ready for your signature, and that sustainable packaging manufacturer in Sweden is on the line." "Actually," I said, "I think we should discuss involving the Lynch Foundation in our global initiative. Their connections could help us reach more communities." Tiffany's eyes filled with tears. "After everything we did, the past is the past," I said firmly. "What matters is what we do now." The day ended with an impromptu strategy session in my office. Bridget ordered takeout, while Leonard and I brainstormed with Tiffany about combining our resources for greater impact. As the sun set over the city, I stepped out onto my office balcony. The neon signs were blinking to life, including the massive Freeman Naturals logo atop our building. "Quite a view." Bridget joined me, handing me a glass of champagne. "Did you ever imagine this when you were crying on my couch?" "Never," I laughed. "But you know what's funny? I'm actually grateful for everything that happened. Even the heartbreak? Especially the heartbreak. It showed me who I really am." My phone buzzed with a text from Easton. "Congratulations on the new headquarters. You deserve every success. I truly hope you're happy." This time, I replied, "I am. I hope you find your happiness too." Bridget read the exchange over my shoulder. Look at you, all zen and mature. Not zen, I corrected her, just complete. Below us, the city pulsed with energy and possibility. I thought about the girl who once felt so small in this big world, who let others define her worth. She seemed like a stranger now. To new beginnings, Bridget raised her glass. No, I smiled, clinking my glass against hers. To being exactly who we're meant to be. The night air carried the promise of more adventures, more challenges, more triumphs. But this time, I was ready for them all.